Welcome in our third session. And in our second session, we were talking about management function audit. And we said that the management functions, planning, organizing, staffing, leading, controlling, these activities are important to assess in strategic planning because an organization should continually capitalize on its management strengths and improve on its management weaknesses. Now, when we talk about planning, as I told you earlier, it would include planning consists of all those managerial activities related to preparing for the future, specific tasks including forecasting, establishing objectives, devising strategies, developing policies, and getting goals. And you have to audit all these things prevalent in an organization. And this would be, if we correlate this management function with the strategic management process, it would be part of strategy formulation. When we say organizing, I told you in organizing, we make a structure according to the plan. So in organizing includes all those managerial activities that result in a structure of task and authority relationships. Specific areas include organizational design, job specialization, job descriptions, job specifications, span of control, unity of command, coordination, job design, job analysis. All these things would be done. Okay, all these things would be audited. And that would be again part of strategy implementation. When you talk about motivating involves efforts directed toward shaping human behavior. Specific topics include leadership, communication, work groups, behavior modification, delegation of authority, job enrichment, job satisfaction, needs fulfillment, organizational change, employee morale, and managerial role. So these are the aspects related to the motivating, or we can also call it leading role as well. And again, that is part of strategy implementation. The staffing is also part of strategy implementation. And in staffing, it says that staffing activities are centered on personal or human resource management. Included are wage and salary administration, employee benefits, interviewing, hiring, firing, training, management development, employee safety, affirmative action, which you have to take against the discrimination, equal employment opportunity, union relations, career development, personal research, discipline policies, grievance procedures, and public relations. So these are all the things associated with staffing. And when we talk about controlling, it says that controlling refers to all those managerial activities directed towards ensuring that actual results are consistent with planned results. Key areas of concern include quality control, financial control, sales control, inventory control, expense control, analysis of variances, rewards, and sanctions. And that would become the part of strategy evaluation. Now, remember that we are doing and studying all these things in context of internal audit. And that is the third step you need to do in internal audit in your second phase assignment and in your FYP as well. So I'm warning you again that you have to be very much vigilant and careful in designing all these things. Either you are studying a running business or you are launching a new setup. You have to be careful that what are the basic functions of management and how those basic functions of management can eventually result into your strengths or weaknesses. Now, as we talked about structure development in management functions, so let me tell you how structures are related with the strategic discussion. Now, supposedly you are launching a small business, small entrepreneurial venture, a sole proprietor setup. In that aspect, the structural detail you're going to have would be as shown in the slide, which is simple structure. There is owner or manager of a business, and then there are certain workers working for him. But as the business grows, you need to come up with functional developments. So when you talk about functional structure, these are the simplest form of the structural details, and I'll be telling you the further processes through which departmentalizations can be done. So, but right now, when you talk about functional structure, that would mean there is a top management, or under the top management, there are different functions related to manufacturing, sales, finance, and personnel, and etc. And as you grow further, there can be a divisional structure that there is a top management. Under the top management, there are two product divisions, product division A and product division B, and every product division is having their own structural details in terms of departments of manufacturing, finance, sales, and personnel, manufacturing, finance, sales, and personnel. Okay, and there can be other types of structural details as well, which we will be talking about in a couple of minutes. For example, there can be customer departmentalization, there can be process departmentalization, there can be geographic departmentalization. So there are so many other types of departmentalizations as well. Now let's have a look that what do we mean by the expressions of mechanistic model and organic model. When we talk about mechanistic model, we are discussing the structural details. And when we talk about mechanistic model, it would mean a structure characterized by extensive departmentalization, high formalization, a limited information network, and centralization. But when we focus upon organic model, we are talking about a structure that is flat. There are less hierarchical levels, uses cross-hierarchical and cross-functional teams, has low formalization, possesses a comprehensive information network, and relies on participative decision making. So that would make an organic structural detail. And let's have a look on their diagrammatic representation. These are the diagrammatic representations for organic and mechanistic designs. That in mechanistic design, there would be large size organization, the efficiency strategy would be incorporated, stable environment would be there, rigid culture would be established, and manufacturing technologies are usually having mechanistic design. But when we talk about organic design, the typical contingencies for organic structure would be small size, innovation strategy, changing environment, adaptive culture, and service technology. Okay, so now let's go through the detail of when and why and how these structural details are required. As we said, that mechanistic model and organic model are the two models we have. Now, first of all, let us link us with strategic detail. Why do structures differ? The strategy is going to dictate us. For example, in case of innovation strategy, a structure that emphasizes the introduction of major new products and services, and that is definitely organic model. When the strategy is cost minimization, the structure would be mechanistic, as a strategy that emphasizes tight cost controls, avoidance of unnecessary innovation, or marketing expense and price cuts. So for all these things, all these strategic options, we need to go for mechanistic structural detail. And in case of imitation strategy, a strategy that seeks to move into new products or new markets only after their viability has already been proven, it is said that for imitation strategy, you need to have mechanistic structure in the short run and then organic structure in the long run, because in the long run, perhaps you would like to become the market leader as well through innovation and development. So the strategy is demonstrating, the strategy is dictating that what type of structural detail is necessary. Now, let's mismatch these things. Suppose you have the cost minimization strategy and you try to develop an organic model, you would not be able to achieve cost advantage. And suppose you have the innovation strategy and you try to incorporate mechanistic structure, you would not be able to come up with proper innovation. There is another detail you need to understand related to mechanistic and organic structures. And that detail says that no organization is 100% mechanistic or 100% organic. Like 100% mechanistic would mean it's a machine structure. Okay, and 100% machine structures usually do not exist. And 100% organic mean that there is no rule and regulation, there is no formalization, there is no chain of command, span of control, lines of authority. So usually that model is not workable. So what we need to talk about is that there is a degree to which these structures are incorporated. For example, there can be a ratio of 60-40, that 60% your structural detail is mechanistic and 40% you are structurally organic. There can be 70-30, that 70% you are mechanistic and 30% you are organic. So organizations do have both the aspects, structurally either mechanistic concerns or organic concerns, but we have to focus that which concern is predominant. When you talk about size of an organization, it says as the size grows, the organizations would become more mechanistic. Okay. For example, a small setup, a small entrepreneurial venture, a sole proprietor business in which there are 5-6 people working. So you don't have a very rigid control systems. You don't have very tight span of control and chain of command situations. There is no formal rules and regulations as such implemented. So as a small organization, it can operate organically. But as the organization grows in size, it has to become more mechanistic. Okay, so how the size of an organization affects its structure? As an organization grows larger, it becomes more mechanistic. And the larger organizations would have more specialization, would have more vertical levels, and would have more rules and regulations, which would obviously make it more mechanistic. The third contingency factor determining our structural detail would be the technology. And in relation to technology, it says how an organization transforms its inputs into outputs. And for that matter, we'll be concerned with our standardization and customization activities. Okay. So as the slide says, the characteristics of routineness, which can be either standardized or customized, there can be 3 aspects we need to focus upon. The first one is that routine technologies are associated with tall, departmentalized structures and formalization in organizations. And the routine technologies are related with standardization, in which volume of production is high, variety of production is low, and equipment flexibility is not flexible. And in case of non-routine technologies, we're talking about customization or lean manufacturing or lean production, in which variety of products are more, volume of production is less, and there would be the requirement of higher levels of equipment flexibility. Okay. So the routine technologies, when we talk about standardized operations, are associated with tall departmentalized structures and formalization in organizations. Routine technologies lead to centralization when formalization is low. And obviously that would be incorporating mechanistic environment. And non-routine technologies are associated with delegated decision authority or empowerment. And that delegated decision authority and empowerment are the norms of organic structure. So we have seen 3 contingency factors: the strategy, the size, and the technology, that how these 3 contingency factors are affecting our structural detail. And that can be either resulting into strengths or weaknesses. There is another contingency factor, and which is environment. And in terms of environment, it says institutions or forces outside the organization that potentially affect the organization's performance. So the key dimensions of the environment could be, number 1, capacity, the degree to which an environment can support growth, It can be volatility, the degree of instability in the environment, and complexity, the degree of heterogeneity and concentration among environmental elements. And all these details will be coming to us from our external environmental audit, that what type of environment is prevalent in which we are operational. And we have to see that either our structural detail is in accordance with the environmental factors of capacity, volatility, or complexity or not. So let us define these two terms in another fashion, that when we say mechanistic, it will be characterized by machine-like standard rules and procedures with clear authority. And when we say organic, it would mean design of organization in looser, free-flowing, and adaptive manner, which would all depend upon the structure, the tasks, the roles, the system, formality, the communication, the hierarchy versus collaboration. We have talked about these two diagrammatic representations. Now let's move another step, that a graphic explanation of contingency theory of organizational design. It says there is no one best way to organize. That when you have to design the structure of an organization according to its plan, there is no one best way. Organizational structure depends on the environment in which an organization operates. And according to that factor, again, we are talking about mechanistic and organic. And in terms of mechanistic, we are focusing upon centralized authority, vertical communication, flows, control through strict rules and regulations, defined SOPs and everything. And when we talk about organic structure, decentralized authority, horizontal communication flow, intra-departmental cooperation is the predominant element. Now, related to the structural detail, let's see that how many types of departmentalization can exist. As major categories, we have 5 departmentalization types. The first one is functional departmentalization, which means grouping jobs by functions performed. Product departmentalization, which would mean grouping jobs by product line. Geographical departmentalization, which would mean grouping jobs on the basis of territory or geography. Processes would mean grouping jobs on the basis of product or customer flow. And customer would mean grouping jobs by type of customer and need. Now, when you are conducting internal audit and you are studying the structure of an organization, remember we have to see that on what basis these departmentalizations are developed. And either those bases are providing us strengths or weaknesses. And either those bases are in accordance with our strategy, with our size, with our technology, or with our environment. Because every type of departmentalization is having their own advantages and disadvantages. For example, let us look on this diagrammatic representation, which is talking about functional departmentalization. That under a plant manager, there are manager engineering, manager accounting, manager manufacturing, manager human resource, manager purchasing. So we have made departments according to the functional areas or the functions they perform. The major advantages of developing functional departmentalizations are, number one, efficiencies from putting together similar specialities and people with common skills, knowledge, and orientations. We can achieve economies of scale through this. We can have higher levels of task specializations. Another advantage can be coordination within functional area, because similar working skills are working together, and in-depth specialization can be achieved. These are the advantages of functional departmentalization. But there are certain disadvantages of functional departmentalization as well, which mean poor communication across functional areas, and that can be even the weakness as well. And limited view of organizational goals, that can be another weakness related to the functional departmentalization. Let's talk about geographical departmentalization. In geographical departmentalization, supposedly there is vice president of sales, and under vice president of sales, sales director Western region, sales director Southern region, sales director Midwestern region, sales director Eastern region. They are operational. Now, Southern region, Western region, these are geographic areas, these are territories. And the major advantage you have by developing geographical departmentalizations are, number one, more effective and efficient handling of specific regional issues that arise and serve needs of unique geographic markets better. And the disadvantages could be duplication of functions can feel isolated from other functional or organizational areas. These are the disadvantages, which can even be the weaknesses. Now you can see that different types of departmentalizations can either result in strengths and can result in weaknesses. And we have to be very much careful that when designing these departmentalizations, what is our strategy? What is the size of the organization? What are the technological aspects? In which environment it is operational? And based upon these factors concerning departmentalization, we have to see that either we have to launch mechanistic environment or we have to come up with organic model. Another departmentalization can be product departmentalization. Also remember that one corporate body can have different types of departmentalizations at the same time. Okay. Now, what we are concerned with is that when we look at the hierarchy of an organization, the organizational structure or the organogram of an organization, what we are communicated with is much related with the first layer of the hierarchy, the first layer of the organogram or organizational structure. We have to see that how the first layer is developed. So in this particular context, we are looking at the example of product departmentalization. That in case of product departmentalization, we have three product departments. First one is mass transit sector, then there is recreational and utility vehicle sector, and there can be rail products sector. And under these product departmentalizations, there can be further either more products, or there can be either geographic, or there can be either functional structures developed as per the need is. Now, looking at the product departmentalization, the major advantages can be allows specialization in particular products and services. Managers can become expert in their industry, closer to customers. That is the benefits we can drive from the product departmentalizations. And when we talk about disadvantages, duplication of functions, limited view of organizational goals, these can be the disadvantages of product departmentalization. Another departmentalization we can see in the slide is process departmentalization. Now, in terms of process departmentalization, there is plant superintendent, and under plant superintendent, there is sawing department, there is milling department, there is assembling department, there is sending department, there is finishing department, there is inspection and shipping department. So now the processes are the factors which determine the efficiency and effectiveness of a department. And the advantage of process departmentalization can be, number one, more efficient flow of work activities, and the disadvantage can only be used with certain types of products. Now we have to be again careful during our internal audit when we are talking about management functions, and we are talking about organizing, and we are concerned with structural details. We have to see that what is that procedure of our departmentalization and how that procedure or the departmentalization type can result in our strength or in our weakness. Yet there can be another departmentalization, which is customer departmentalization. Like you visit some bank, you can visit your telecom sector companies, and there we can see postpaid customers, prepaid customers. So if the departments are divided on these terms, postpaid and prepaid context, if the departments are translated in a bank in terms of retail banking and industrial banking, so these are what you call customer departmentalizations. So in terms of customer departmentalizations, we have manager retail accounts, manager wholesale accounts, manager government accounts, and the advantage can be customer needs and problems can be met by specialists, and the disadvantages can be duplication of functions and limited view of organizational goals. We have covered 3 points related to our internal audit. First of all, we talked about resource audit. Then we talked about cultural audit. Then we talked about management function audit. Now we are talking about departmental audit. And in this departmental audit, we are going to have a checklist of questions. And in that checklist of questions, we would see that either the organization is having strengths or weaknesses in terms of its operations related to every department of either administration or marketing or finance or production and operations. And the answer to these questions would result in our strengths if the answer is yes, and the answer to these questions would be our weakness if it is no. And remember that these are just generic questions I'm discussing with you. When you will be conducting your own audit, you have to translate these questions into your own organizational requirement. For example, let's start from management audit checklist of questions. The first question you can ask to the management is, does the firm use strategic management concepts? If the answer is yes, it means strength. If the answer is no, it means weakness. And by strategic management concept, we mean formalized procedures that we have mission, vision, values, we have defined objectives, we have defined strategies, we have strategy implementation procedures defined, we have evaluation and control systems. So if these things are there, that is a strength. If these things are not there, that is a weakness. As in the second question, are company objectives and goals measurable and well communicated? And please remind yourself that when we talk about objectives, we are concerned with three types of objectives: strategic, financial, and operational. And we have to see that either the objectives are smartly defined or not. So are company objectives and goals measurable and well communicated? That can be either strength or weakness. Do managers at all hierarchical levels plan effectively? That can be a strength or weakness. Do managers delegate authority well? Empowerment is either empowerment is there or not. So that can be a strength or weakness. Is the organization structure appropriate? I was discussing either mechanistic or organic. So that can be a strength or weakness. Are job descriptions and job specifications clear? That can be a strength or weakness. Is employee morale high? That can be a strength or weakness. Are employee turnover and absenteeism low? That can be a strength or weakness. Are organizational reward and control mechanisms effective? That can be even strength or weakness. So these are typical management audit checklist questions which we have to ask to the organizational facility to find out that what are their departmental strengths and weaknesses, and then eventually we'll be translating those departmental strengths and weaknesses in our final internal audit points. We are going to start a very important discussion now, which is marketing audit. And in marketing, we are concerned with the process of defining, anticipating, creating, and fulfilling customers' needs and wants for products and services. I repeat again, in our internal audit, we are discussing departmental audit now. We have gone through resource audit, we have gone through cultural audit, we have gone through management function audit. Now we are focusing upon departmental audit. And the current department, which is very important department of an organization, the marketing side, the marketing function, we are going to discuss it in detail now. As at the start of our today's session, I discussed with you the business DNA. Now I'm moving you towards the DNA of marketing. So the core on which the marketing concept is operational is the DNA of marketing. And that includes four important dimensions: the strategy, the branding, the design, and the communications. When you say branding, it would include the brand audit, the comparative analysis, the corporate identity, the logo, naming, the brand DNA, we'll be talking about in a couple of minutes, and the website audit. When you talk about strategy related to marketing, we'll be looking at business and executive coaching, content strategy, customer research, customer segmentation, comparative analysis, funnel optimization. Okay, so these are the things associated with the strategic aspects of marketing. And when we will be focusing upon communications, we'll be looking at campaign development, content development, digital advertisement, lead generation, media training, online marketing. So these are all the things we'll be concerned with. And in case of design, corporate identity, logo, package design, photography, your website. So these are all the design aspects related to the marketing side. There is another concept, which is customer DNA. And when we do the forensic audit of customer, the customer DNA would include sales and contact management, people and organization, business enablers, customer proposition and delivery, business and customer impact, strategy and planning. So these are the different aspects related to the customer DNA. And you can go through the details afterwards. Then we focus upon brand DNA. The brand DNA will be talking about the brand plan, the MarCom, which is marketing communication, the consumer audit, the R&D facility, the people audit, the profit audit, the sales audit, the buying process. So these are all the things which are associated with the brand DNA, which might include the planning, positioning, value proposition, product roadmap, cultural beacons, business results, go to the market options. So these are all the things you need to talk about when you are concerned with marketing audit. As typical functions of marketing, we have to look at customer analysis, selling product and services, product and service planning, pricing distribution, marketing research, opportunity analysis. And in these contexts, we have already talked about, say, marketing DNA or customer DNA or brand DNA. As you know, your marketing function would majorly rely on your STP analysis. And the STP would mean segmentation, targeting, and positioning. Now I'll have a little discussion with you that how segmentation, targeting, and positioning is going to be audited and how it is going to be resulted into your strengths and weaknesses. Starting from the segmentation discussion, you all know when we talk about consumer segmentation, there are four main bases. It can be geographic segmentation, it can be demographic segmentation, it can be psychographic and behavioral segmentation. And in terms of, suppose, geographic segmentation, we are concerned with nations, regions, states, countries, and cities. When we talk about geographic segmentation, we are concerned with age, gender, family size, family life cycle, income, occupation, education, religion, race, generation, and nationality. When we are talking about psychographic segmentation, we need to discuss social cycle, the social lifestyle, the social class, the personality traits. And in behavioral segmentation, we need to focus upon knowledge, attitudes, uses, responses to a product on occasion, benefits sought, user status, usage rate, and loyalty status. Now, mind you, we are not studying marketing, we are talking about strategic management. Now, what does strategic management has to do with these segmentation types? We have to see that either our markets are properly segmented or not. And if our segmentation is not properly done, that would be resulting into our weakness. And if our segmentation is properly done, our strength can be materialized. That is the reason that we need to go into the nitty-gritties of structure, nitty-gritties of marketing, nitty-gritties of finance, nitty-gritties of everything. Because we have to make a strategy eventually. And we have to see that when we are doing the structural and departmental audit, what are the details and how those details can result into, again, our strengths and weaknesses. Now, to conduct the audit of marketing, you have to join the next Zoom meeting. We are going to end our session here now. Please hurry up and join the next Zoom meeting.